Hello, welcome to the live, to whoever's here. I'll wait a couple minutes as always and then we'll get started. And today's topic is just covering some English revision from some of the past lives we've had, and particularly argument analysis. I'll pop the Google form in the chat. I'll do that later. I think I'll do that a bit later. But yeah, let me know how you guys are going with school and all that. Whether you've had any assessments. I think it's fairly early in term 2. I heard it's like week 3. So if it's not too hectic or what's been going on, let me know. Mildew, hello. Welcome to the live. Coom, hello. Welcome. I have an article. Okay, I'll get the article actually. I think that might be more useful. Alright. So, in the meantime, while we wait for people, you guys can have a look at this article. This is the article we'll be going through in not too much detail, just a little bit. Okay, the link's too long. Let's see. The link should be in the description for this live. So, there's an Apple Store article, the Guardian article. Check it out. Have a read of it. We'll just be using it briefly for a part of the video. But I'll wait till maybe 8:35 and then we'll get started. What's my favorite ice cream flavor? My favorite is, I think generally, like out of the basic flavors, I like chocolate. But in, I guess, the fancier places, I like Nutella chocolate. Nutella. I like Nutella a fair bit. What's yours, 2 week-long sacs. Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty rough. Hope you did well. Congrats on getting them done. So, did you have a sac before the creative sac then? I think I might have talked to you about this, Emmy, but it's a bit weird that you creative sacs in term 2. How come you both asked Is there some kind of trend going around with ice cream flavors? Ravin, hello, welcome. Yeah, so what will be covered, I will show you guys now. Let me just find it. So I'll skip to this slide. Oh, there's some slides in between, but essentially the structure for today, since you asked, is just this. So some general English revision questions, some argument analysis specific questions. So I'll be asking you guys what you think of certain pieces of analysis, and also identifying what, how, why. Actually, that gave it, yeah, okay, and doing that. So some more targeted questions for argument analysis. And if you guys have any questions throughout, you can let me know as well. Emmy, you did text response first. Okay, nice. That's an interesting way of doing it. But I don't think creative's on your exam. So I wonder what your school's reasoning is for that. But if it works, it works. All right, we'll give it till 8:35, I think. My last preparations for Chem sacs. I think for me, my final preparation for Chem was usually just practice sacs. Yeah, and I'd have a brief read of my notes as well. But I think for Chem, if you've done well in the practice sacs, you kind of know the content, then there's nothing too much to be stressed about. Yeah, you just should be able to do okay in the actual sac. Alright, let's get started then. If anyone has any questions as they come in, they can ask as well. You haven't done anything on language analysis yet, so this should be a good kickstart. Yeah, have you checked out my previous lives at all? It's fine if you haven't, but they will help a bit for today's live and for argument analysis in general. Okay, I answered this question, then we'll get started. Chemistry prac reports posters. From what I remember, the rubric is really, really helpful. So you want to make sure you're following the rubric well. It really breaks down literally where each mark comes from. Like, you know how in English, the rubric's often... I'll go to answering questions, actually. I'll go to that slide. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, what about chemistry prac reports and posters? Yes, the rubric is really, really important. It breaks it down into literal marks, like 1 mark for word count, 2 marks for, like 1 mark for validity, for reliability, for, what's the other one? Like precision, accuracy, all those. You really want to make sure you look at that. For some topics, like English, you guys have probably seen the rubrics for English. They're pretty bad, right? They're like, each category is very wordy, and it's the top category is like, sophisticated language. It's just very general. But for the poster, you really want to make sure you follow along well with the rubric. That's my main recommendation there. All right, let's get started with today then. A nice and interactive session. So please type if you have questions. I'll get you guys to answer a lot of questions. So just type whatever you think in the chat. I really don't mind any kind of response that you've attempted. So don't stress out too much about that. All right, so a couple updates. Thanks for people who are filling out the Google form, which is in the description box below. What I've learned, answers have been really good. So what I recommend you guys do is just write 3 things you've learned and write it specifically. So don't just say like, I learned how to analyze. Say like, I learned to really, I learned that how can be listing, or I learned that homework essays are good for this particular purpose. So really be specific. It will help you remember it as well. And some of you have given some excellent recommendations for topics to cover as well, which will hopefully be done in future lives or future videos. I actually caught COVID earlier this week as well, which was a little interesting. Don't worry though, I've been negative since, and it was pretty light for me. So I had a runny nose, but that was it. So that's an interesting update. And also, if you guys have any good places you recommend for brunch, please let me know. I'd be interested to hear. Anyway, next, just something interesting, argument analysis in the news. So as you listen in the radio, as you look around at different newspapers and stuff, it's really useful to think about argument analysis. It's literally, that and Ing Lang are things I literally use still. Like they're things that make me think, and things that I think really help you see through things. So companies often want to present things a certain way, whatever, and it really helps if you can. It's nice just being able to say, I see what you're trying to do. It's just a nice moment. The one on the left is not so much argument analysis. I just thought the photo was really funny. I saw it with my family, but I don't know what happened to, the poster. But I guess if you want to analyze it, you have these guys standing up, they're smiling, they seem pretty happy, and they're spread out pretty well. Like they're not all facing you. They're sort of at an angle, especially the guys on the side, which is, a bit nicer. But this one was just a bit funny. This is a recent ad actually, phone down, buckle up. I hear it a lot in the car, but you guys might have seen it around. It's like one of those TAC ads, and it's like talking about how there are going to be more cameras monitoring phone use and seatbelt use. And so language wise, have a think about what this might be. I'll just tell you guys, I won't, like this isn't a question, but yeah, it's sort of the imperative feel of it. So phone down, buckle up. It's very authoritative, which reflects the fact this is a very serious topic and can be very dangerous as well. And also you have the catchiness of it, right? Like you'll probably remember this in a couple of days time. Phone down, buckle up. So short, almost monosyllables, and you have the not antithesis, but like the antinomy, so like opposites of down and up. So it makes it very memorable. Phone down, buckle up. Really memorable stuff. And if you want to analyze the picture, I haven't talked about image analysis with you guys, but obviously the seatbelt going straight through the middle, and I can't see the rest of the picture, but yeah, some ads and stuff. But yeah, just keep an eye out for argument analysis around you, and it's just nice to use it in society. You did this accidentally last year. What did you do accidentally last year? Anyway, all right. And the quote for today is, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty." It's pretty applicable to VC, honestly, because it is both a competition with other people and a competition with yourself. So just some thoughts on that. VC is a competition against yourself. So every time you do an assessment, you shouldn't really care about how other people did. It's good to know your ranking. I think you should know your ranking just so you know how you're tracking along. But like thinking too much about what other people did or how well they did is not really helpful, because they probably made different mistakes to you, and it just takes away from what you should be really focusing on. So really focus on, are you working on your weaknesses? It's really annoying to work on your weaknesses. If you know you're bad at something, you know you're behind, it's highly annoying to have to catch up on it. So are you willing to do that? And is the routine, I asked this a lot. I asked this at the start of the year as well. So hopefully your answer is a bit better from then. But is the routine you're currently on now, one you're happy with? And finally, this is a problem I think a lot of people have. When you're sort of sitting there relaxing, you have some work left over, but you can't bring yourself to do it. That is literally an instance of having to conquer yourself. So it's you versus yourself on that couch to do the work or to not do the work. And that happens actually quite a bit. So really think about that when you're going to complete work or you're preparing for an assessment. Okay. And here's a mini tip for those of you who are here. So just for quoting, I just thought I'd pop it in. It doesn't fit in too well like anywhere else, but hopefully this helps you guys out. So with all types of quoting, both argument analysis and for text response comparative, you need to quote smartly, right? So you don't want quotes that are excessively long because that's just annoying and it's difficult for the person to read and you're not really getting to the heart of the matter. And also, you don't want quotes that are too short. So with quotes, there are two things to keep in mind. So how do you actually quote? Well, you want to manipulate the quote and cut certain parts out. So take out the parts that you need. Take out the important words. If some of the words in the quote you can just say without putting it in quotes, then just do it. Like you don't need to quote it. Just because, the word and do is in the quote doesn't mean you have to use it in the quotes. You can just write and do yourself and then quote the important parts. Avoid these. You've probably seen people use them a lot. I think this is for adding words. The square brackets, I think, is for adding words. The round brackets is for adding like endings. So if one of your words doesn't fit and you want to change it to a plural, that's what people do. Try and avoid these because when you read, it doesn't flow as nicely. And usually you can just reframe the sentence a bit. Next, what should you be quoting? You should quote enough so that what you're saying is not in doubt. So if you say listing, quote a couple items from the list. Don't say like just listing and no quotes. And also don't say listing plus like one thing. So through his listing of, quote, apples. That's not really listing. Or it might be, but it's not convincing enough. If you say inclusive language, quote we. So everything you say, quote it so that the examiner has zero doubt, so that the examiner doesn't need to refer back to the piece. Oh, okay, Emmy. Yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah. Like, it's almost auto mode for me. Like, sometimes I just think of argument analysis as I listen to an ad. I'm like, what makes this so compelling? What makes it so interesting? All right. And just for those of you who just joined, the structure for tonight, general English revision questions, argument analysis specific questions, and then Q&A whenever you want. And please answer the questions and just type them in the chat. Like, there's no pressure. Half of your usernames aren't even like who you are anyway, so it's not like I know who's who. So yeah, please interact. All right, so question number 1. So we're going into sort of the general English questions here. Do you guys know what is the number 1 rule of English? If you don't know, it's fine. You might not have been to previous lives, but this is like one thing I have tried to emphasize. The number 1, if you want to improve, if you want to score high marks, people ask me, Darren, how do I get this score? Whatever. And I give them advice and stuff, but there's really one true way of doing it. And please pop it in the chat if you know what it is. ARA, I'll answer your question a bit later. But yeah, I'm just unfortunate that you didn't do as well as you wanted to. Okay, yeah, good stuff. 66% right. It's not memorizing essays. Because I don't know if you're joking or not, but like memorizing essays is one way of doing things. But the main point I was getting to is, yes, asking your teacher for feedback until you're scoring the marks you want. Like if your teacher's giving you a 10 and you worked up from a 7 to a 10, you should be able to know exactly what your teacher liked about this new essay, and you can track your progression and your teacher knows you're on the right track. Because teachers also know who you are. Like they can probably recognize your handwriting or see your name. If they've always given you a 7 in practice, they're not going to suddenly give you a 10 unless you do extraordinarily well. So usually they have a general idea of you in their heads already. Good. So like I said, just repeating it, especially for tasks that are more ambiguous. So I think the creative is a bit of an iffy one, in my opinion. And so even more important for you to have that teacher feedback so that you know you're on the right track, rather than students from other schools or things you've heard from online. All right, I think we'll skip the next question. So just have a think about this one. You don't need to answer this one. What are the 5 steps to preparing for an English assessment? So this was the sort of stepwise approach I gave to you guys last week, and you can apply to all your assessments for English, and there are like specific steps for argument analysis. Like there are sort of additional steps for argument analysis and all that. And the 5 steps are... So yeah, just have a look about them. Have a think about each step. Oh, Zer, thank you for joining regardless. And I'm glad you watch my videos. Thanks for the support. And yeah, congrats on graduating. And I hope you're enjoying whatever you're up to at the moment. It's always good to hear about people who have looked at my videos in the past or I've tutored in the past. So yeah, so these 5 steps are the approach, essentially chronological in terms of which one you do first. But yeah, learning the text, as I said last week, occurs throughout. Okay, have a look at this. It's not something you need to memorize like step 1, step 2, step 3, but it's a good way to guide your approach. Okay, the next question is, what are you working on when writing homework essays? So each of these 5 steps, and this is a point I emphasized, has very specific purposes. When you do homework, when you revise something in some kind of way, you're doing it for a reason. But you don't do flashcards if you're learning a topic for the first time. You do it to like memorize some specific parts of some kind of topic. So with homework essays, what exactly are you working on? Please pop it in the chat when you can. I think there's a bit of a delay as well between when I say stuff in the chat. So like, yeah, if there's a bit of a pause, bear with us. Yeah, that's good, Emmy. Anyone else have any ideas? Good. Thanks, thanks, Mildew. Yeah, exactly. So all the points that you guys have said are things I would be doing. The common theme essentially is that you have a lot of time with homework essays. So you're really trying to improve your quality. So like you guys said, keeping your work relevant, whatever little problems you have that you want to improve on, homework essays are usually a good place to improve on because you have a lot of time, and yeah, that's the main point. You have a lot of time. And it's also really good, especially in the initial homework essays, to find moments and quotes that you will very likely be using in the exam. So the moments you analyze now, the quotes you pick now, are ones you will probably stick with you. You'll use in the SAC, use in the exam. So that's really important. Okay. I think Emmy answered this, so we'll just move on from this one. But what are you working on when writing timed essays? Yeah, timed essentially. You don't really do this to get like a high quality to improve your analysis because you're so time pressured and you should be doing it so under such test conditions that you don't really have time to improve quality. It's just a matter of delivering your usual quality within a certain time frame. So yeah, good. And like I always say, you want the exam and the SAC to be another day. Like, it's just another Wednesday, another Tuesday. I did a practice exam under strict exam conditions the day before yesterday. I did 2 last week. So tomorrow is just another one of those practices. Okay. This one, just rapid fire. Hit me some points you have. When you complete an exam under exam conditions, what does this actually mean? So what are you doing to simulate exam conditions? Just fire off a couple things you would be doing to simulate exam conditions. Yeah, word limits, good, Mildew. That's more something, yeah, I guess. I don't think I've known many people who've been under word limit, but that's definitely one to keep in mind. Have time to recheck work. Yes, if that's something you want to achieve in the exam, you need to be practicing it. You're never going to barely finish in time and then in the exam, suddenly you have time to recheck your work. Good points. Silence, good. Black pen, line paper, good. Time limit, yes. So I almost Well, I did. I printed out the exam paper when I was preparing for the exam. Like I used their paper. It wasn't necessary, not entirely, but I think it really simulated exam conditions, and I could kind of gauge how much I would write. Yeah, supposedly it helps you gauge how much you write in the exam, but I didn't keep that in mind too much because I knew I could write a decent amount. But it does make the exam feel more comfortable because the paper, it does look a bit weird. Like the margins are really closed in. So when I went into the actual exam and I saw paper I'd been practicing on for the past couple months, then, there's nothing to be worried about. It's just another day. Good points. All right. So we have a couple more slides on general English. Once I'm done with that, I'll answer the questions from Ara and John and any other questions you guys might have. Andres, yes, watch, good. Silence, use exam time conditions. Good. So these are some of the points. Yep, no breaks, appropriate reading time as well. That's very important. Reading time is very important for any subject. So you want to practice it. You want to have things you want to be doing. I'm giving you 15 minutes of a head start on this piece where there's no pressure to write anything, but you have all the time in the world to think. And that's really, really useful. And mentally as well, when you sit your practice exams, you never want to think, I'm a bit tired, it's a practice, I'll just write it. If I want to stop halfway, I'll just stop halfway. Like, no, you're doing a practice exam. In the actual exam, it doesn't matter if you have, a blocked nose or whatever, and you're tired. You still have to write the whole essay, and you want to make it good. So if you give up when you're tired in practice, you're going to give up when you're tired in the exam. Was there anything? Oh, watch. Someone asked me about which watch I wore in my exams last week, and this is the watch I wore. I think you guys can see. I bought it for exams actually, just because I didn't have a very clear watch, so I just bought one and been using it ever since. All right, and the final question this is such an argument analysis question, but I guess the final question before we get into like very specific argument analysis: what should you always be analyzing in an argument analysis piece? I know Emmy, if you weren't here last week, no, I didn't cover this last week. It would have been the week before, actually, so you might know. My bad. But yeah, what should you always be analyzing? Have a think. So these are also good things to have in the bank, because when you're stressed, when you're worried, if you have things are there for certain, it's much better. So you're in the exam, you're a bit stressed because it's the real thing and you don't know what to do, and you're like a bit stressing out. If you just look at these things as you always do, you'll find pieces of techniques. You'll find techniques to analyze and you'll be fine. Picture, good. Persuasive techniques, the author's target audience, their contention. Yeah, that's more like... That's true. I meant more like specific parts of the piece that you would be analyzing. But yeah, you'd analyze all those things, techniques, contention, all that throughout the piece. Title, good. Wordplay, yeah. But wordplay, like you got to make sure you find it, right? You're not sure. You need to find wordplay. It makes it a little harder. Change in tone. Change in tone is an interesting one. I'll talk about that in a bit. The appeals, yes. I think, yeah, maybe a lot of what you guys are saying is correct, but it's like, I'm looking for like specific parts of the text that you should always be analyzing, rather than like specific techniques. Because techniques, like sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. They're in different places, right? You might have stats, you might not. It might be at the start, might be at the end. But things that are reliable are the title, like Emmy said, the picture, and also last paragraph. Yeah, good. Conclusion. Mildew helped me out. Good. Yeah, so what the audience is positioned to feel, those all require thinking. So it's good. You want to be including those, but the really basics, the fundamental places to look for analysis, the title, the picture, the conclusion. Yes, ending paragraph. Nice work. Good. And yeah, images, like I said, are the most analyzed part of any exam. Like most people analyze the image because most people sit English and then argument analysis and then the image. All right, I'll answer some of the questions you guys had. So from ARA, high 30s. This person is aiming for around high 30s to 40s, but choked the text response. scored around 60, but the highest in the cohort was 80. Do you still have a chance to turn the study score? Yes. Like, anytime you ask me that, it's going to be yes. You definitely can. But the way you do that is by thinking about why you choked it. Was it nerves? Was it lack of preparation? Improving that next time. Okay, don't think about the 40. Don't think about, oh, I'm like behind. I got to overcompensate. I got to score a 90. So when I see my next sac, I'm going to score a 90. Because that doesn't mean anything. Like, how can you know you're going to score a 90? But if you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to make sure I've done, 5 timed pieces before my next sac. I'm going to distribute my time better. I'm going to, maybe be alone before the sac and just listen to some music or relax or whatever. So because I was too nervous last time, those are like literal steps you can take in and improve from your last sac. So that's the way to do it. Definitely possible. You just want to make sure you're working on the correct things. Okay. I'll try this format of answering questions as well. Okay. Someone else had a question? Oh, John. Yes. So John's question is, when I'm doing timed essays on argument analysis, it takes me too long to figure out how I'm going to structure my body paragraphs. So in terms of within your body paragraphs or overall, like what do you have in your first BP, second BP, third BP? So please clarify if you can. But I think it means within your body paragraphs. In that case, it shouldn't be too hard. Like, I just do it chronologically. So the first, not chronologically, but in order of when it appears in the piece. So the first quote I see, I'll analyze it first. Second quote, I analyze it second. So it shouldn't be too difficult in that case. Maybe you're having trouble with picking out what quotes to use, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, hopefully that helped you out. Emmy's suggestion of getting a song stuck in your head is a useful step. Yeah. For me, I don't think about it too much. Just get up. The moment you sit there and think too much about the work you have, sometimes you won't. You'll feel unmotivated to do it. Good. If not high study score, but I think that's for the most I reach, and now it's been daunting me the whole time. Yeah. Don't stress out. No worries. There's suspicions going around that my English teacher isn't marking fairly, which is a problem. Yeah, I think be aware of those suspicions. Keep an eye out. If they're real, then obviously escalate and talk to your friends and stuff. But if you think about how your teacher's biased when you go home, it's not going to help you get better at English. But yes, be aware of it and conscious of it. But work on your English skills. And when you say choked, I think, do you think there was a problem with you, or do you honestly think you wrote well and the teacher gave you a bad score? Okay, Cume, do you have more free time in uni, or is it similar to year 12? I had more free time in uni in first year and second year. Now that I'm in the hospital, I would say I had more free time in year 12. Now but I think I sort of choose that as well. People can go home a lot earlier in the hospital, but I choose to stay a little longer, which means I have less free time. Actually, year 12, I guess. Yeah, I had COVID as well. The lockdown year. I think it felt like I had more free. Yeah, it felt like I had more free time, but I just dedicated that free time to studying a lot of it. Emmy, how do you stop obsessing over the scores? It's normal to be obsessed with them to a certain degree because they're important and obviously they're part of your ranking and part of your ATAR. But I think one way you can think about it is that you can't change the score, right? So if you've received a score, there's nothing you can do about it. It's there, we'll forget about it. If it was a bad score, don't get disheartened. If it's a good score, don't get complacent, right? You just want to be very neutral and you want to prepare for the next assessment. And if you're worried about scores that are going to come, then that's even more pointless, right? You're not going to get a good score by thinking about it. You're not going to get it bad. You might get a bad score by thinking about it too much. So the main way to navigate that is just to really focus on steps and focus on work. So when I stress out too much about scores, I find it makes me feel better when I'm doing work. So if I'm working on some practice essays or doing some practice questions, I feel like my mind clears a bit in terms of obsessing over scores. So hopefully that helps. All right. Good stuff, guys. Let's get into argument analysis. This is more fun questions, so hopefully you guys will enjoy. So have a look at the following piece. This piece is in, is in the description box. I tried to paste it in the chat. It's too long. You can just search up, let's see. Apple flagship store, The Guardian. You can search that up. Yeah, search that up. Have a look at these, like up until the first image. Well, up until the second image, I think. But yeah, up until this last part, despite the massive public outcry. Okay, I want to make this a little interactive. So you can have a look on your own screen, so you can have a look at my screen. And what I want you to be thinking about is what quotes... Oh, yeah, whoops. I need to share back to the... Yes, here. So argument analysis. You can have a look at my screen, or you can have a look at your own screen, and essentially have a think about what quotes you would use, and sort of normal quotes versus fancy quotes, which I've talked about in the past as well. So some quotes are kind of like whereas some quotes you really, really want to be including. And I'll talk about what makes them so compelling. But yeah, have a look at these 3 pages. I'll leave it on, I guess, this page. So have a look at them. Have a think. So just nothing too deep. Just have a read through it, and then we'll talk about them. Hello. I don't know how to pronounce. Oh. Yeah, welcome to the live. Yeah, good. Yeah, so like Emmy, if you guys have any clues about what quotes stand out to you, there are wrong answers, but this is more subjective than you may believe. So if you have pieces of quotes that you think, are really compelling, pop them into the chat. Be very interested to hear. Must, ill-conceived. Good points. Cloak of Christmas madness to put out the trash. Excellent. I like that one as well. I'll get one more comment maybe, and then we'll go through it. So this is the next slide, in case some of you can't be bothered looking at it on your own screens. You can look at it on mine. And if you think there are good quotes, pop them into the chat. One more person suggest a quote, and then I will go through it. Mildew, yes, stick out like an alien spacecraft. Good. I am not sure if that's in the paragraphs that I had, but as in, like, I think it's later in the piece, but that's good. Emmy, obvious clue and impending public backlash. Yes, good. Yeah, I'll talk about analysis a bit later. So we're looking at finding quotes first, and then we'll talk about analysis. That was all good quotes, I think. Yeah, all right, let's go into it then. So yeah, which quotes are normal and a bit fancier, and which ones would you include in your writing? So the reason it's kind of useful to think between normal and fancier is that the fancier ones I'd be more inclined to include. So as you'll see, I do exclude a fancy quote just because I forgot why. I'll explain it when we get to it. But normal quotes, it's like you keep or you don't keep. There's no real reason for you to have to use it, and you just pick the ones you like. And also, you can use it stylistically, so you don't need to analyze it. You can just use it in your piece. Divided public, yeah, I think that's a normal quote, probably not a fancy one. Okay, so this was the title plus the context, and in blue I've highlighted the ones I think are good, and the red, the excellent ones, I really want to include. So ill-conceived, cultural heart, planned incursion, and we must stop. So I'll explain it a bit. The reason why we must stop I think is so good is because of explain this later. Should I explain it now? Yeah, it's because of how good the how is for we must stop. When you think about it, so this is the beginning of the piece. You have this inclusive language of we, immediately pitting the reader and the author together, and you have the very strong modal verb must. So because of how ripe that is, I think that I have to include that. I can't start off my piece without including this. Ill-conceived is negative connotations. It's all right. Cultural heart, it's a bit of personification, bit of just just nice imagery, I guess, but it's nothing too significant when you try and analyze it. Planned incursion sounds a bit insidious, like a bit invasive, but once again, not too strong. But I think insidious creep is a really strong one, and pseudo public is a good one as well because of how good the how is. So pseudo public is a very clever phrase, I feel like, because it's like highlighting how fake and fraudulent they are. And insidious creep, I think, is just so emotive and so like creepy, I guess, in a sense, that I think I have to include it. Yes, must as high modality, good. Okay, and in terms of this one here, so the ones in blue are all the average ones. If you have any questions about why I think they're average and not excellent, pop them in the chat, but I won't go through every one. Put out their trash, excellent one. The monosyllables, put out their trash. And also, it shows the author's extreme displeasure to Apple, and also, depicts Apple as this really sinister organization that's just looking to, just doesn't really care about people, and put out their trash really highlights that point. And I also really like I can't really see my own thing. Most significant and loved public cultural spaces into something more akin to a generic shopping mall. I just think there's a lot to dive into there. Most significant, loved public cultural spaces. So very extreme positive words juxtaposed against generic shopping mall. Okay, and the other one is obviously Apple are over the moon about it. I think over the moon is just a nice phrase, and it highlights how simplistically happy they are about it. So those are, I think, are really strong ones. You have the classic listing. I would include it just because it's listing, but it's not like anything exceptional. And for those of us, classic inclusive language. Dandelion, welcome. No worries. I hope you enjoyed whatever you were out for on your Saturday night. So yeah, what are we up to right now, Dandelion? We are looking at argument analysis. So I went through some of the general English stuff. You can watch the live later if you would like. But now we're just going through this piece, and I'm talking about what quotes are good, what quotes are like okay, you can live with and you can live without. All right, this third part here, blue is good, red is excellent. Win-win. I just think, low-key that could be a good one as well. But I think it's just a nice catchy phrase, and it's a very, very childish phrase, win-win. And I think it highlights how Apple is really simplistic once again, and is very hell-bent on achieving their material gain. Also, if anyone from Apple is watching this video, this is not my opinion of Apple, it's just me analyzing the piece. All right, and the bottom ones are transformation of Melbourne's most significant civic square and secretive negotiations. So yeah, most civic square, I think that's actually a good quote, probably not an excellent one, but it does resonate with a lot of the themes in the piece. And the secretive negotiations, I think, just really pits a us versus them narrative. Once again, the how is pretty strong. Good. All right, and next I talked briefly about Emmy, I'll get to your question in a bit. I talked briefly about which ones I would skip. So I would skip ill-conceived just because I think it takes it a bit long to explain. So ill-conceived is like the intent behind it. So when you really think about it, ill-conceived. So from conception, it was bad. So from the moment, it was a bad idea to begin with. I think it just takes me a bit long to explain. It's not really worthwhile. Cultural heart, average, but I would probably include it. Planned incursion, I'll probably skip because a lot of the stuff later is all the same thing, right? Insidious creep or the invasion, whatever. It's all the same thing. And I'll probably skip pseudo-public. Just the impact of it isn't that strong. It would take me a while to analyze it. So the fact that it is pretending to be part of it just takes a little while. I'd be okay skipping that. And when I say pacing for planned incursion, you can see that there's quite a lot to analyze in the early part. So this is why I say the title is so ripe for you to analyze, because even just the title and the context, when you look at the later piece, there's a lot. There's a lot of techniques you can analyze here. It's very compact within these lines. So it's really easy to analyze each one, and then bang, you're like 5 minutes behind time and you have 90% of the piece to go. So that's what I mean by pacing. You want to be smart about that as well. Second part, possibly skip flagship store, just because I think it's sort of mocking it a little bit with it's both quoting and mocking it, so which is a cool idea, I guess. But I would probably skip it depending on how it's going. Maybe I can use it as you can definitely use it as a, what do you call it? As a stylistic quote. And I think there was something else I wanted to skip. No. Actually, the other parts are pretty good. For those of us, actually, I could probably skip, but the other ones I would probably use and just analyze briefly. So you can see that these quotes, I feel like just a little better, a little stronger. I want to keep them a bit more, which is why you also want to be very trigger happy with skipping stuff at the start of the piece. Because later on, some of the quotes get quite good. Here, the ones I would skip, yeah, so not that impactful. Like, I don't really... It's important that Federation Square is so, attractive, whatever, but it doesn't contribute much to the author's point and to my point. Like, the fact it's attracted 100 million visitors, not that impactful. And also, I think that was it. Yeah. In terms of quotes, I would include probably the other ones. So what do I actually mean by impactful quotes? Do you guys want to have a guess? Have you, like, what have you noticed about the quotes in red compared with the quotes in blue? What makes them stand out a little bit more and makes you want to analyze them a bit more and makes you less willing to skip them? No, hey Samuel. No worries. I hope they helped you out. And thanks for joining the live as well. Forceful and descriptive, ones that stand out. Excellent, Mildew, Emmy. Thank you guys for participating. Anyone else in the chat who's like lurking? Or not lurking, that's not the best word. But if you're just watching, like literally just contribute. It's fine. No one will judge you. And yeah, it just doesn't matter. Like, I think in classes as well, if you guys remember being on Zoom, like no one was willing to turn their camera on. Like, it doesn't matter. If you're going to bend over that little bit of pressure, then it's going to be hard to do like big things later on or be in exams. So start by putting yourself in some pressure situations. Good, Samuel. Thanks for participating. Impactful and juicy quotes, having more to analyze. Yeah. Higher yield compared to other quotes. Yeah. So language that makes you feel something. So when you read it, you're like, ooh, like that felt pretty good. Like, felt pretty impactful. I felt something, right? And you're kind of the target audience, so you'll kind of feel something. And the how is very juicy, and also it ties into the intent really, really well. Right? So the how is very good. So we must stop. That one had a really good how. And the insidious creep ties really well. It makes you feel something, and it also ties really well into the piece's contention, which is that Apple is trying to wiggle and worm its way into Federation Square. So things that tie in really tightly, things that make you feel very strongly, and techniques that just have a very nice how, because how is the part people miss out on the most. You don't think you know anyone here in real life? You may, who knows? I guess a lot of people have usernames and stuff. I've seen people like recognize each other in the chat, which is pretty cool. Oh, okay. What does how mean? So, do you guys remember the 3 parts of analysis? Does anyone know? Can anyone answer Mildew's question? I'll answer a couple questions in the meantime. But if anyone can, give their definition of how, I will give mine. Like, I'll explain it as well. But I'll just see if anyone else knows. All right, let's answer a couple questions. I think Emmy had a concern, right? How do you stop obsessing? Oh, is it worth trying to build a vocab bank for common analyses? I think you can if you have time. It's not the best use of your time. I think if you're good at writing, and as you write more, you'll naturally build up ways of saying things. But I think if your writing is quite lower in quality than you would like, then it may be useful just to really sit down and think of analyses, but then also try and apply them straight after in subsequent pieces. But like, just try and apply it really, really soon after, because otherwise you'll forget. If you sit there, remember really pretty ways of saying things, it's really hard to apply them to a piece a week later. So it is useful, but only if you feel like that's a real weakness for you. I thought I had another question somewhere. If I missed anyone's question, just type it again. Ken, will you be doing videos on how to pass med exams? Unlikely, because I mean I could actually, like how to study for med exams. Yeah, but generally I think if you pay attention in class, like literally if you just do the work, you watch all your lectures, you pay attention in class, you try and participate, you give an effort, like you put in effort and you turn up to everything, I think you'll pass. Very, very, like you have to get every second question wrong to fail in medicine. And I think if you've put in effort, it's unlikely for that to happen. But also do like message people and stuff if you're struggling. Like also go to, you can go to PSPs as well. So sort of revision lectures and all that. But I think if you put in the effort, then you won't fail. And yeah, what, how, why? Good. Who was asking about how I saw? Yeah. How is like the technique? Yeah, good, Samuel. Was Samuel asking about the how? No, Mildew was asking about the how. Yeah. So how is the technique? So maybe you got your school has like different ways of talking about it. Yeah, how does the reader portray? How does the author portray this is more the way I see it. Like it's either the neat language technique, so inclusive language or stats or whatever, or it's like the description of this or the use of emotive language if you don't have a really nice word for it. But it's essentially what the quote is. So it's a description of the quote, kind of. Much easier if you write. If you write, you'll be able to identify it a bit better. How is like the author implemented that technique? Yeah, good. Hopefully that helped you out, Mildew. And Emmy, struggle to find the words to get across what I'm trying to say. Yeah, don't worry about most concise way possible. In time conditions, I would have to like kind of think of ways to say things, novel ways of saying things. Like I'd use weird phrases and stuff. As long as you get the sentence out, don't think of the perfect way to say it. So if you don't know the perfect word, write a phrase, change up the sentence. I tell my students this all the time. If you don't know a word, like you can't find the perfect synonym for significant. Okay, important is a good one, but let's say you can't find the perfect synonym for significant. You might say, this is a very critical point for the reader or something. Like just change the phrasing a bit. Never get stuck in English. Never get stuck. Oh, UCAT is hard. Are many of you seen the UCAT? I am happy to do a video maybe talking about how to balance UCAT prep. I've had people request that, but I don't know like how many of you guys are seeing it. But I could do that. Good. I'll answer this last question. For an argument analysis structure for the essay, do you usually have one intro? No, I have one intro and 4 or 5 body paragraphs. I did 7 once, never again. Yeah, 4 or 5 BPs. Just because I think usually they have more than 3 arguments and I can write quite a bit. So for me, it worked out well. 3 body paragraphs, you can score whatever mark you want with 3 body paragraphs. That's perfectly fine. All right, let's jump back to the PowerPoint and we're getting to some fun, even more fun parts. And this section is called what is missing in the following pieces of analysis. So some of these are taken from my piece. It's up to you to decide whether the one that's missing is mine or the one that doesn't have stuff missing is mine. But have a think about what is missing and pop it into the chat. All right, let's get started. I'll talk a bit about UCAT then at the end of, when we get to the next Q&A section, because it is quite stressful. What is missing? Okay, it seems to be a decent UCAT audience. I'll talk a bit about the UCAT at some point in today's session. So yeah, please stick around. But you guys have been here for a while as well, so thank you guys. Emmy, Ara, Mildew, Coombe, and yeah, thanks to everyone else as well. Says it's missing the Y. Anyone else have any thoughts? there's no wrong answers because this isn't the assessment, right? Like even if you get it wrong, you didn't get it wrong because you learned from it, and you'll know the right answer in about a minute or 2 minutes when I tell you. So, pop down what you think. Is this analysis perfect? Does it have all the components you want? Is it missing things? All right, I will talk about this. I don't think it's missing the why. I'm very keen to hear why you guys think it's missing the why. Like it's subjective. I'm open to discussion. So the why here, I think, is introducing the audience to the idea of the area as being the throbbing hub of Melbourne. So the why can be like setting the scene, essentially, because authors need to do that a bit, right? When they're talking about the context, they might be talking about a recent incident or a recent controversy. And so here, remember that it's so Norman is doing a couple of things. One of the things he does, so this is the Apple piece, is he makes Federation Square as a very sacred place. And so I think the purpose of that is to, introduce the audience to the fact it's sacred. Really like put that as a sacred place in their heads, so that the Apple Store seems even more intrusive. So I think the why is there, in my opinion. But please let me know why you think it's not there. Yeah, Eason is more what I thought. Technique name, yeah, the technique name essentially, or the how here. Yeah, good. So it doesn't really say what cultural heart is. I don't think there's a neat, like you can say metaphor. Actually, no, I used a neat phrase later. So what I said was, Norman personifies Melbourne and describes Federation Square as the city's cultural heart. So Melbourne is like a human, essentially, and Federation Square is its heart. So that is the how. What? Cultural heart. How? Personifies the personification. And why? To paint the idea of Federation Square as being like throbbing. Like that's me reflecting the analysis. Right, this is a really important point as well. A secondary tip for you guys. Use your analysis to reflect the quote. I've mentioned this previously. So throbbing, I'm literally paralleling the idea of that Norman wrote, that the Federation Square is a heart. So what did you guys say? It goes, causing the readers to feel empathy. Yeah. But I would say later, right? Because this is the start of the piece where I just say it's a cultural heart. I wouldn't say you feel much empathy towards Federation Square yet, but you can say like, setting up the readers to be more empathetic later on. And what is the quote itself, Emmy? Yeah, so with you guys might have different definitions. In my head, what, how, why. What is the quote? The literal quote itself. So if there's no quote, then there's no what. How is technique or the mechanism behind the quote, like what makes the quote so cool. And then why the heck is the author included it. All right, next one. Anything missing? Anything missing? Let me know. Her string of rhetorical questions. Do we really think it will be healthy? Oh, this is not from the Apple piece, by the way. This is from... Yeah, there's a piece on ebooks. All taken from my pieces, by the way. If you're curious about what my standard of writing is like. Or my style of writing. Good, Samuel. I agree. I could probably say readers a bit better here. Mildred says nothing. There is something. But I'm glad you you like the writing. Specifying the audience is one thing. Yes, there are other things that can be improved upon. I will give you guys a clue if you don't get it in 15 seconds. Yeah, audience is correct. I could probably say readers or specify. You don't need to specify in every line. Like every time you mention audience, you don't need to specify like teenage boys between the age of 14 and 17. Like you don't need to be very specific every time, but it's good to specify it at occasional points. ME is the one I was looking for, and this went back to quoting, right? When you read it as an examiner, you'd be like, so this student says there is a string of rhetorical questions, but there's no proof that it's a string. Is that really a string of questions? Like I'll have to read back, or I would doubt this student. So yeah, that was the main problem here. So this is what I actually wrote. So I just quoted another one. And you can see like I use the ... dots a lot because the only part that's useful is me showing it's a question. So do we really think it will be healthy? It probably said like, do we really think it'll be healthy if our like future generations all look on tablets, blah, blah, blah. But that's irrelevant to me. I just need to show it's a question. So ... And will we think it's okay? ... So mold the quote to your use, like bend the quote to your needs. And yeah, impact on audience. Yeah, I mean, she urges them to realize that. I feel like that's a decent, what do you call audience? Great encouragement, Q. Alright, I think the next order is wrong. Oh, you didn't see that. You guys saw that. Okay, I did it the wrong way around here. Yeah, so this one is missing the how. What do you guys think the how is? Yeah, we'll change the question up. Do you want to write a how for this one? So you have the what, the quotes, you have the why, depict the school as having a tradition of innovation. And here you see it's another context thing, right? So earlier we had, depicts Federation Square as the throbbing heart. Here it's, depicting the school as having a tradition of innovation. So that later on, we're more inclined to bring in new ideas because we're like, the school's always been like this, always bringing on new ideas. So, and this happens a lot in pieces. You'll see these patterns occur. But yeah, if you guys want to try writing a how, literally like a phrase, like what do you think the how is here? And yeah. After this, we have one more of these, what is missing type questions. And then we have a last section where you'll just be identifying the what, how, why. And then I think we'll be done. So very exciting. Yep, good. Harry, I'll get to your question in a little bit after. So we have one more of these to do, and then I'll answer your question. Yeah, so the positive connotations, progressive connotations, I guess. Any other ideas? One more idea. Stacy. Oh, Stacy, hello, welcome. I think I see you around quite a bit. For MMI interviews, did they ask for your co-curriculars? I will answer that as well in a bit. That might be relevant to people who are sitting the UCAT this year as well. By leading readers want change. What does that mean? Think about try and explain what you're saying. This is good practice for you, Emmy. If you want to rewrite stuff, like I literally don't understand what that means. You can use simpler words, but try and just write it in a way that, a 6-year-old or someone much younger would be able to understand the logic behind it. I feel like I know what you mean. Like I feel like I know what you're getting at, but it's not quite explained well. If the examiner's tired, they've marked 10 pieces, and then they read that, they'll probably be a bit confused. Nice wordplay, yeah. Do you have better word than wordplay, Sam? Wordplay is fine when you don't know what it is, but tradition of innovation. What's the wordplay here? Not necessarily a sentence. Just tell me what the how is. Like what the other guys have been doing. What Emmy and who else? And Samuel, and I saw one earlier as well. What was? And yeah, Samuel. Yeah. Good. All right. I help you guys out a bit. Amy, I'm not going to help you out because I think you need to think I think this will help you to figure it out. I think Samuel, I think it's just it just rhymes, right? Tradition of innovation. It doesn't juxtapose. Juxtapose puts two things next to each other or against each other. You usually use it for things that are like contradictory or go against each other. So he juxtaposes the idea of the school as or he juxtaposes the traditional values of the school against what new laws the student council is trying to bring in, whatever. It shows that the school is moving forward. That'd be more the why. Yes, Emmy, that's much better. Really good. Trying to inspire readers to want to progress. Yeah, I'm really glad you reached that. That makes much more sense. What do you guys think? What do the other people think in the chat? I think that makes far more sense than, what was your original one? It was, by leading readers want change. Yeah. Oh, actually, no, Samuel, you're right. Yeah. Tradition and innovation are contradictory. Yeah, I guess you could mention the juxtaposition. You're right, I was wrong about that. But I don't think it's important to I would just say it rhymes, but I don't think it's important. Like, the fact it juxtaposes wouldn't help you that much. Like, unless you can think of a way to frame it. But I can't think of why the juxtaposition would help his point, kind of. But yeah, good. So what I would say is, what did I say? Yeah. This is not good. Don't say these descriptions. But I think, so these progressive connotations is a bit better. Or these descriptions of the school's past. So you can just kind of say what this is. The fact that it's descriptions of the school past is a good enough how. In the absence of any special hows you can find. It's better than, not having a how. And this is the last one. What do you guys think? Emmy says the why. Any other thoughts? So this one, in my opinion, has all the components. The what is good morning, yes. The how is amiable address. Greeting works fine. Address is fine as well. Address is like you addressing someone, right? It's like how you begin your conversation. Why, I would say, is here, even though I don't mention the audience. The why is to establish a casual, friendly atmosphere. If you want to bring in the audience, it's making the audience feel more comfortable. But it's sort of the similar points. I would say the point here is that you don't need to necessarily mention the audience when you're mentioning the why. It's not always necessary to do so, but I would say this one has all three components: the what, the how, the why. If you guys have any questions about it, you can pop it in the chat. Positioning the audience, I would say casual, friendly atmosphere is a positioning. It's sort of implied that it makes the audience feel more comfortable or whatever. Alright, yeah, if you guys have any questions about that, let me know. But anyway, I'll answer some questions. We'll talk about UCAT, I think, at the end. Harry asked me internships, work experience. I completed work experience at the Austin Hospital, if that helps. I think it was we have to do it for school in year 10, I think, for a week or something. And yeah, so I did it at the Austin Hospital. Stacy asked, for MMI interviews, did they ask for your co-curriculars? No, but you can definitely bring them in. So MMI interviews, they rarely ask you directly, what extracurriculars did you participate in? Because the point of it is that they give you a scenario and they ask you questions based on it. But they might give you a scenario where maybe you're going back to school and you're like giving a careers talk. So you're a doctor now, you're giving a careers talk. And they might ask you like, what made you want to be a doctor? And you might mention your co-curriculars there. Or they might slip in a question like, what type of person are you? As the last question about the scenario, where they really broaden it out. And in that case, you can talk about how like, now I'm someone who loves involving myself in different events. So yes, I guess they do ask for co-curriculars, but also be aware of opportunities where you can bring in your co-curriculars, even if they don't directly ask for it. Because it's not like a personal interview. Samuel, should you only use single sentence analyses for simpler quotes? You do whatever you want to do. You should spend less time on quotes that aren't as long and aren't as significant. But if it's shorter, like whether you use a single sentence or two sentences, it doesn't matter too much. Emmy says it feels like you need another sentence. Yeah, I guess you can. But I think like, I feel like you don't need to analyze too deep into it here. I would say it's not like good morning, fellow book lovers. You can dive a bit more into it, but I think for me it was the first sentence of the piece, and I just wanted to get a quick what, how, why done. But yeah, you could add another sentence, but I didn't think it was worth me adding another sentence in this case. ARA asks, for argument analysis, if you wrote 4 body paragraphs, would you have 3 on the first piece if it's 3 arguments and how they portray it, and 1 on the response piece? What do you guys think about that? So remember, I do things for reasons. Actually, that sounds very odd. As in, like, I try to do things with reasoning, especially with exams and stuff, right? So like reading time, I spend most of it on argument analysis, because reading time for the other ones, I just sort of pick the topic. But for argument analysis, I really need a chunk and stuff. And I can't write anything when I'm chunking, right? So I may as well do it in reading time. So if you had 4 body paragraphs, how would you guys split it? Do you have any ideas? It's good to like think about these types of things. Like I came up with that, how I spent reading time myself, because I thought about it. And I was like, this is a bit difficult. So you want to try and apply that to all your preparation. And if you have like specific questions, you can always ask me. UCAT, I'll talk about UCAT, Stacey, at the end. And Emmy, thanks for prefacing it with a UCAT question. I'll talk about that a bit either. Okay, so that's Emmy's strategy. I know that's a specific type of writing where people just compare throughout and mix everything together. That is possible. For me, I didn't have to compare in the exam. That was one of the things we got. Yeah, you can compare it in the last BP. You can, yeah. But the main point I was getting across is, why would you spend 3 BPs on the first text and then 1 BP on the second text? Yeah, I think Samuel's strategy is quite good, and it sort of reflects some of the thinking that I had. Like, you split it however long the texts are. So that's why I said 4 to 5 BPs or 4 to 7 BPs. Because sometimes there are more arguments, and sometimes the first text is longer. Sometimes they're really similar in length. Sometimes there's a bunch of images in the first text and none in the second text. So you just want to be flexible. You want to do practice in all the ways I talked about last week. But yeah, if I was writing 4 BPs, I don't split it a certain way. But I have in mind, like, if the texts are similar in length, 2-2. If they're not similar, 3-1. But it's pretty flexible. And yeah, you compare in the SAC, but I didn't have to compare in the exam. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, if you think usually the response piece is small, yes, that's a good strategy. 3 and 1. Let me try to understand what Samuel is saying. Placing the bulk on the main passage, focus on the comparative. 3-2 or 2-1. So 5 BPs or 3 BPs? Yeah, possibly. All right, let's jump into the last part of today. We're almost done. Might be a bit tired, but we are almost at the end, and then a bit of UCAT talk, and then we'll be done. All right, so the last part is, I thought this one was fine. Identify the what, how, why, okay? It's very rapid fire. There's only 3 of them. Okay, 3 of them, and then we're done. We'll skip the what, because you guys know what the what is. So tell me the how, and tell me the why. what is the how of this analysis and what is the why of this analysis. You don't need to think as much as the last one. You're literally just quoting my writing. So just write in what do you think the how is and the why. And if someone said it, you can say it as well. Like it doesn't. It's not like if one person has said the how, you don't say it again. Okay, sandwich structure. That's interesting. What was your actual structure? You compare throughout. Oh yeah, I guess sandwich. Yep, good. Okay, good stuff. And the why? Hit me. What's the why? Yep, good. Great work, guys. And bonus question, why did I use curly? Like, what the heck's curly there for? Yes, you know, really good. Good stuff. Thank you guys for participating. Curly, what is the point of curly? Bit of an interesting one. It's a little harder. I see you guys are like taking your time a bit. It is something I've taught. I think that gives it away. When teachers say that, it like makes it a lot easier. Tone, yes. Curt isn't really a tone. Oh, I guess it is sort of a tone. Mildew, good. Emmy, kind of. I think Mildew's kind of the closest. Samuel, polite tone. Yeah. So Samuel and Mildew, I think if you combine your answers and some of the other, I might just be misunderstanding what some of you guys have said. But yeah, it's what I was saying earlier, right? Someone said like an emoji. It's because it's your analysis should support what you're trying to say, right? So if I'm trying to say, I'm trying to help the author, right? Because the more I help the author, the stronger my analysis seems as well. So the author's point is that bookless libraries are very efficient. So I say he curtly highlights it. It sort of reflects that, links in with it, works together well with it. So if, the author was describing a scene of like a war. So you might say Price poignantly highlights, or Price despondently, or Price, or in like, in a very sad manner, or in a despondent tone, Price. So yeah, use your analysis to reflect and use your language to reflect what the author's trying to say. Same with incredible efficiency, right? I could just say, Price highlights how convenient bookless libraries are, but I'm not helping the author. Remember, you're the author's, number one fan. So I'm saying Price curtly highlights to readers the incredible efficiency that a bookless library provides, really helping Price out here. All right, next one, what, how, why? Hit me quick. You guys are doing well. After this one more, and then we'll talk about UCAT. What, how, why? What, how, why? Idiomatic description is how. Idiomatic description isn't what. I think, Emmy, you just have different definitions of what, how, why to me. The what is the quote. Like, don't think any more than that. The what is the quote. How is, the idiomatic expression. Portray the organization simplistically happy. Yep, is the why. Good stuff, guys. Yes, Mildew, excellent. So you notice how here, similar to the earlier one about good morning, good morning, my fellow book readers. I don't necessarily need to mention the audience here. Like, it's kind of implied that portrays the organization to the audience as simplistically happy. So kind of shows the audience this. So I don't really need to mention the audience specifically here. Yep, ARA, good stuff. So yeah, green is the how, yellow what, and pink is the why. All right, have a look at this one. Yes, Samuel, good. Simplistically happy. So I'm sort of criticizing Apple as well because I'm Norman's #1 fan now. Yep, and then they can't be trusted. Oh no, you had a different point to me. I thought you were saying that I echo the author's voice, portraying Apple as children to the readers. Not necessarily. Yeah, childish is good. Oh, whoops, I read children. Yeah, childish is good. So it's sort of like they have a very simplistic one goal, which is to material gain and to support and to, have a building in the Federation Square. And yeah, as a result, they can't be trusted, but also they're portrayed as a bit materialistic and just, they seem more separate from the everyday people. So you're more likely to feel a bond with Norman, and then you feel like Apple is this external entity. All right, so the what, how, why here, please. You might hear a bit of noise. I just need to copy paste something from one of my videos. You guys probably heard that. All right, please fill out this Google form. How do I unpin something? Oh, replace. All right, do we have any suggestions? Yeah, so what, how, why? Keep popping your what, how, whys into the chat. When you have time, while I answer some of the questions. Oh, whoops, you can't see it. Yeah, what, how, why here? What, how, why here? Wait, what was this one? Oh, okay, I just copy pasted twice. Yeah, so the what, how, why of this analyses. And when you have time, fill out the Google form when I'm answering some questions, just because I guess it will consolidate what you've learned today in this revision session. And yeah, I'm always keen to hear your feedback. But yeah, what, how, why? What, how, why? Hit me with the what, how, why. What? Yeah. So what is all the quotes? Good. Loved, hated, appreciated, diverse and open, vital role. How? Yes. Yes. Good. So this is a more subtle how. Good that you identified it. So I'm saying how is, yeah, because there's no nice word for it. Right? You might say the juxtaposition of loved and hated, but I think the fact that he's acknowledging this is kind of how. And what's the why? Samuel says, what loved and hated, how acknowledgement, why strengthens conclusion that nevertheless. Yep. Good. Very good. Yeah. And notice how this one is a lot longer. So when you compare it to this one, it's a lot longer, right? And you can kind of see how it's more deserving of that longer word space because of the fact I'm using more quotes, I'm synthesizing them, and the point is a little more complex, right? I'm saying how it sort of sets the scene, how even though people love and hate Federation Square, we should all respect it. Whereas this quote here is just saying good morning. Like, it's just making everyone feel a bit more comfortable. So yeah, analyze quotes appropriately to how important they are. But yeah, this is I didn't highlight the pink, but yeah, the pink would be the second sentence essentially. So I spent 2 sentences and you can see it's significantly longer. Why to suggest that? Yep. Good stuff. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you to all who participated. Particularly the people who contributed a lot. So Emmy, ARA, Samuel, Mildew. I feel like I'm missing. Yes. And everyone else who was watching, thanks for tagging along. All right, I'll answer some of the questions. I'll scroll up a bit. So UCAT, a lot of you mentioned being stressed about the UCAT. What's my response? UCAT is a bit intimidating because of the fact that it's a very short exam. You have one exam, it's very fast paced, and then it has equal weighting to your ATAR for med in a lot of places, which is pretty scary in a sense. But you shouldn't think about that too much in your preparation. You should divert that into being very prepared. So divert that nervous energy into being very prepared. And with your scores for MedEntry, I didn't do well in the later mocks. I'm not sure. I feel like MedEntry was quite harder than the normal ones. So I think when you get to the later mocks, you should trust yourself more than you trust MedEntry. What I mean by that is if you're doing everything you want to do, so you're getting through all the questions and you're using the tactics you want to do and just sticking to your game plan, then whatever score it is, don't think too much about it. Review the questions you got wrong, but focus more on your process than your actual result. So the later mocks, I think the scoring, I don't know what happened there, but if you do everything you want to do, if you do the question to the best of your ability, like don't think, just because it's hard or whatever, I'm just going to do this Venn diagram half-heartedly. If you've done the Venn diagram, you've gone to the best point you can, you've kind of solved the question, then don't be mad at yourself. But if it's the process, like the actual doing of the question that you're not doing so well, then that's something for you to work on. So focus more on what you're doing during the test rather than your scores. And that should guide you a bit more with MedEntry. The scores will probably stress you out a bit there. So Stacey, how did you plan out mini mocks and full mocks? So I've answered this in previous places. Actually, I think this is a pretty important question. So maybe I'll share this on my Instagram or something as well as answering your question. So how did I plan out? So Stacey asks, how did I plan out MMI mocks and full mocks? Did I do question banks and then mini mocks and full mocks closer to the exam date? No. So what I did was I did a full mock every weekend since January of the year I was sitting the UCAT. So for about 6 months, there were some weeks where I didn't, but that was my goal. That was like my main UCAT prep. I said to myself, I'm going to sit a full mock every weekend. I started off with a good baseline. When I sat that first MedEntry mock, I think I scored 91, which is good enough to get an interview. Like back then it was sort of like, if you get above 90, you'll get an interview. So I was like, 91's pretty good. So there wasn't a lot I had to work on per se. Like I didn't have a lot of glaring weaknesses. Throughout the week though, I would be working on those weaknesses I wanted to work on. So I'll be working on practice questions, whether they're timed question banks or untimed questions. And also I would occasionally sit mini mocks. Once again, it's like any kind of study. What are you doing them for? So untimed practice, I did that a lot for DM, so decision making, because I was like, I should be able to figure out these questions, right? DM gives you just enough information to figure it out. I feel like you should be able to do it if you draw the graph well. So I really tried to figure out strategies for that. Whereas if you do time DM practice, then you kind of half-heartedly do each question and then you haven't really learned anything from it. So hopefully that answers your question. Full mocks every weekend, some occasional timed mocks and practice questions on my weak areas throughout the week. And particularly when I didn't have any schoolwork, I'll be working on the UCAT a bit. So in the holidays as well. Emmy asks, how do I revise questions properly for the UCAT? I tend to go over the ones I got wrong, but the MedEntry explanations go right in my head. Yeah, I think the explanation is a bit long. Just try and figure out the question. I think that would be my main tip. I think there are so many questions that it can be very, very tiring to have to remember your mistake. It's good to do, but I think it's just a bit unreasonable. So I think it's good that just right after you've done your exam, review it, try and solve the question to a good degree. Like try and just get the question right. Or, you can, if it's really, really hard and you don't get the explanation, you can wait till your brain's not so tired and then try again. But yeah, just do the question and get it right. I would say that's a good way of reviewing it. And then just do that for every mock and kind of should accumulate. Were there any more? I think there was one more UCAT question somewhere. Okay, Samuel's is the next question, I think, unless I've missed one. Do you have any tips on grouping quotes? I'm struggling on linking quotes very succinctly. You don't group quotes much. Like, you group them if they're all in the same two sentences and they have similar ideas. But if you look at how I grouped my quotes here, it's just, I don't know. I think of a good explanation. Maybe message me, Samuel, and I'll try and think of a good explanation of how to do it. But I think of the point I'm trying to get across and then fit it in. So I'm trying to say that the background is it's loved and hated. However, ultimately it's respected. So I would quote loved and hated, group it together first, and then quote, the stuff that shows it's respected, it's diverse a bit later on. Hopefully that helps a bit. But you don't, group it too much. And usually it should be pretty obvious when you want to group stuff. When am I going to cover the oral presentation? Emmy, may I ask how you did on the UCAT? Yeah, it is in some of my UCAT videos. I scored 3,050. Wonk, when are you going to cover the oral presentation? I didn't have the oral presentation in year 12, but I'm happy to... Yeah, the difficulty is, I got to balance how long and how short the live is. I think if I did a live on the oral presentation, I could give, public speaking tips, but content-wise, I wouldn't know a ton. So I'll have a think about that. But yeah, are your oral presentations soon? Feel free to let me know. Stacey, I tend to do better on MedEntry than Medify. Should I worry? Do you think you should worry? You probably shouldn't worry. It's more why you're getting questions wrong. There's no reasoning behind why you're doing better on MedEntry than Medify. In terms of you can't learn much from that. It's just you're doing better on one than the other. Oh, and also I think you asked me how I was doing. Yeah, I'm doing well, actually. Earlier on, I mentioned I got COVID earlier in the week. But otherwise, I've been pretty fine. How did I study for it? Cume, I hope that answered your question if you heard what I said to... Whose question? To Stacey, I think. Yeah, to Stacey's question. Hopefully you heard that. ARA, do you apply to universities via VTech after? I think someone asked me this as well. I don't know. From my memory, you apply before you've gone your ATAR, and then you do your final preferences after you've received your ATAR. But, do you? No, I don't think you can change it after you've gone your ATAR, actually. Yeah, but check with your school careers, or students who graduated more recently, or your teachers. They would know much, much better and in depth than me. Samuel, be broad about how to bounce back and maintain motivation. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Emmy. Oh, yeah. Okay. 24th percentile would probably ruin your day. Maybe you were tired or whatever. Just figure out your mistakes. The main part is you don't want to... You want to maintain a high average. So like I said with your exams as well, you want to make sure that you do well even if you're tired. Even on your worst day, you can do somewhat that you're happy with. So you want to lift up your baseline. Samuel's question, how to bounce back. I'll go to the... Whoops. So Samuel asks me, how do I bounce back after a prolonged period of sacs and maintain motivation? I think after a prolonged period of sacs, it's fine to be a bit tired, right? So after each sac, I would actually go play basketball in my backyard and chill for a bit. You need a bit of time to wind down. So in periods that you don't have sacs, I think just take it back a notch. Go back to your baseline. So when you are preparing for sacs, you sort of prepare very heavily. You're very focused. When you're not preparing for sacs, take it back a little bit. Pay attention, but don't be too perfectionist about every little thing. I think that might help you relax a bit. So just focus on strategies, on doing the work, completing homework, being quite prepared, but not exceedingly prepared. Mildew, I'm not doing the UCAT, but should I do it just to have a go? Yeah. I reckon you should do some prep. If you just go in blind, you're not going to do very well. Even if you just do 3 practice papers beforehand, you'll do so much better than not doing any. Yeah, I mean, sure, go for it. If you're thinking about doing med, it is kind of a life career, I guess, especially undergraduate medicine. But yeah, you can give the UCAT a go. Go for it. And you can get into med later. We have a lot of we have postgraduate students in our joining our cohort now as well. So they studied other things first. Yeah, that's a good mentality, Sam. ARA, do you generally use MedEntry or Medify? I use MedEntry at the start, and then I use Medify closer to the actual assessment. I think Medify is a bit better, just because I think it's more aesthetic and the questions were a bit more similar to the actual piece, to the actual assessment. Stacey, how do you review mocks? I think I talked about that a bit earlier when I was answering Emmy's question. Just do the questions again and then get them right. You can have a logbook for some, error log for some stuff like the abstract reasoning, but maybe not for everything because you're not going to review it. It's going to be too much. Okay, Emmy, end of term 3. Cool. Your rule status, yeah, that helps a bit. But you want to do as well as you can. Abanesh, hey Darren, if you don't mind sharing, what were you averaging for your practice mocks? I don't remember. I think it varied a bit. So I started off at 91, then I went to like 92. And then there was a period where I got some 98s, some 99s on MedEntry. And then I got some really low scores in MedEntry, like 80 something in the later mocks. And then I did Medify. I think I did decently well in Medify. Some of them were quite high, I think, like 3,100, 3,200, I think. And some of them were like a little lower, like 2,900. But like roughly in like an okay range, kind of. Hopefully that helps out. Samuel, I hope this is not too personal, but are you naturally extroverted? How did this impact your public speaking? English? And when did you start preparing for mainstream orals? I think I seem extroverted. Like I feel like I'm a bit of both. Like, but I did public speaking from a young age, and kind of when you do public speaking, you have to learn a bit of both. I think you kind of balance both. Yeah, I don't think it should impact your public speaking skills. I think everyone should have some kind of classically extroverted skills. So you should be able to talk well and confidently, whether that's loud or soft, whether you're overly expressive or not, that's more like a style choice. But regardless of your style, I think you should be able to talk confidently and without pausing and hesitating too much. So I think those are skills you want to work on. And in terms of the specific styles, I guess if you're more introverted, you might be a bit quieter, you might not move around as much, might not use your hands as much as well. When did I start preparing? I didn't have oral in year 12. So some things got cut from my study design because 2020 was the first COVID year. Stacey, I used both. How can I do targeted practice? There are like timed questions and untimed and practice mocks. So I think Medify was quite good. Like you can pick how many questions you do within what time and from what section they are. Emmy. Third mock, worst one yet. Oh well. Well, why was it? Why did you do poorly? And Ari asks, isn't it significantly harder to get into medicine through postgrad? Depends how you view it. In the sense that some people who go into postgrad med didn't get into undergraduate med, right? So in that sense, you might say that it's harder to get into undergrad med because they didn't get into undergrad med. But in another sense, it's harder, I think, if you do another degree first, then it is very competitive to get into medicine. The spots are limited. You have to work hard for a good couple of years, like work quite hard and want to score very highly as well. So it is, I think it's more competitive once you get in. But yeah, it's not a great comparison. Like, is it harder to get into postgrad or undergrad? Yeah, biomed is brutal because it's very academically competitive. Kind of like year 12. My friend said it's a bit harder than year 12. Stacey, do you have your abstract reasoning notes? I can have a check, but I don't think I have them anymore. And they weren't very good. Like I wasn't that good at UCAT. I didn't do that well in abstract reasoning either. That was probably my weakest area. Other notes, I can have a look, but they're generally not helpful. Like if you make your own notes, it'll be better, or if you find someone else's. But I can have a look in my notes as well and see if they are of any use. I made like really organized notes when I started off, but then it kind of went downhill. So the way to combat that is what I've been recommending you guys. So make short, succinct notes for specific sections. Don't make notes for every single thing. Panda, is it still possible that one gets low in their first sac for English to pull over 44? Yes. Any question you guys ask me now, is it possible, whatever, it's going to be yes. You've had like what, 1 or 2 sacs. You'll be fine. But as I always say, you get there by reflecting on what you did wrong, improving your execution, improving your exam strategies, working smartly, working on your quality. And that's how you get to that study score. And reflecting on why you didn't do that well. Stacey, do you make notes for all the sections? All the sections initially, but in the end, just mainly abstract reasoning and situational judgment. Yeah, I think that's fine. Like 60%. Sure. I mean, there's a lot of considerations, right? Like what type of school are you in? Is it a big cohort, whatever? But you can. Like what? The alternative is you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to get above 45. And then I don't think that kind of negative thinking is very helpful. And plus it is possible. I had friends who were ranked very lowly and scored really highly overall because they did well in the exam. But you never want to let those stories sway you one way or the other. They're just good things to be aware of in case they happen, but you focus on yourself and you improve for the next SAC. Ari? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, very different circumstances. I mean, I think a year 12 student is quite similar to, like, you think you're an adult when you're in uni, but I don't, like, they're quite similar in that case. But yeah, the circumstances are different. Stacey, how did you prepare? You just do a lot of situational judgment and I guess try and look at the thinking behind them. So, like, the thinking is kind of repeats itself a bit. Like, when are things really bad? Some things are really bad. Like, confidentiality is usually, like, really bad. And I guess just doing more questions and making sure you have reasons for picking out certain options so that when you're proven wrong, you learn a bit rather than like, oh, I just guessed without thinking about it too much. All right. I don't think there are too many more questions. We'll probably end the live at 10:10 or 10:15. Thank you guys for joining. It was a pleasure. Hopefully the English revision session helped you guys out. Once again, Google form is pinned. So let me know if you enjoyed this type of revision session. I can hold it in the future in a couple weeks on different topics as well. I'm also considering some lives on English language. So if any of your friends are studying English language, please let them know. It's not a big cohort and there is like nothing online, that much online about English language. So if I can help people out or if you have friends studying English, please let them like know that I may be holding some in the future. Yeah, no worries at all, Stacey. It's good questions. Don't stress out too much about UCAT. Just prepare for it. I know it's coming up. I don't know if you guys have had to like book when your exam is yet. But yeah, it is coming up. It is pretty stressful. Just focus on each week. Ramp up the prep a bit, I think, especially leading up to it. Because, you know, after the middle of the year, you never have to think about UCAT again. Panda, do you recommend using verbs? Like just adverbs? Oh, belligerently refute. Yeah, but not excessively, because you can see it sounds a bit pompous. But like I did with, what was it? Yeah, you don't want to use it too much. So you don't want to say like, thus Norman vehemently suggests or something. Use it when appropriate. I think I had the curtly one. Where was that? No, it wasn't here. Where was that? Yeah, Price curtly highlights. Because it just fits nicely. It's a nice sounding sharp word. So use it when appropriate. Oh, whoops, you can't see my... Okay, yeah. Yeah, this sharp word. Curtly here. ARA. Thank you. No worries at all. As long as you guys get something out of it, I appreciate your time and I'm glad it helps you guys out. 27th of July. Cool. Have fun with it, Emmy. Is that in term 3? Or is that in your holidays? Yeah, some of my friends had it in like August or October, I think, because we had a lockdown. It was like they had one period in July and then there was another lockdown. And then some of them did it in like October. And the earliest, I did it pretty early, like start of July, I think. Or no, middle of June. Yeah, anyway, but there was like a big disparity between when we sat it. Stacey, did I do the official UCAT question banks? So Stacey asked, did I do the official UCAT bank? I did one. because they don't give you a score, I think, and it's like there's no explanation, and it's not that accurate to the actual UCAT, in my opinion. You can just have a look at it. I thought it wasn't that useful. Oh, first day back. Okay. All right. Oh, so it seems you guys have booked it. That's good. Oh, you have to book between the 17th of May. Oh, so not yet, but you guys have booked it already. Oh, maybe because things like pack out and stuff. Yeah. So before the UCAT, especially the week to two before, really focus on the UCAT, right? You don't want to have any regrets or any lingering worries about it. Make sure you iron all those out. So now is where you do the bulk of the preparation, where you do like, I don't know, a hefty amount each week, and it accumulates because you have a lot more time. And then when it gets closer to the exam, that's when you ramp it up a bit and then really hit it strongly. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy that exam. IIRC. I feel like I've seen that acronym somewhere. I don't remember what it stands for. Alright, probably 10:15 then. Any more questions, just drop them. And we'll probably call it at 10:15. No worries, Stacey. How's Monash? I'm not at Monash anymore. Not because I was kicked out, but because I am at hospital placement now. So the last time I've been to uni is last year. There's literally, I have nothing on uni now. All my classes are in hospitals, whether that's Dandenong Hospital, KC Hospital, Monash Hospital, because they have like teaching spaces, because they're kind of teaching hospitals. And I'm enjoying placement so far. I missed the past week because of COVID, but yeah, it's pretty enjoyable. It's tiring, but I feel like it's taking me to the skill level and the knowledge that I want to be at. And it's cool seeing doctors around and stuff as well, because a lot of them are very knowledgeable. They handle things really well, and they give you a standard to move towards. Yeah, I am a third year. Yeah, no worries, Mildew. Go for it. Consider it. ARA, aiming for 50 raw methods, chem, physics, and hopefully further. Flop getting rank 1 in the first sack, but it's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Keep the goals in the back of your mind, but focus on each step, focusing on not making mistakes. Just focus on strategies rather than scores, okay? I hope that I've said that enough that you guys know that. Goals and those scores are what will motivate you and excite you, but strategies are what get you there. Good night, Emmy. Enjoy your night. Yep. Thanks for everyone who contributed. Heard it's like an IQ test. Yeah, it's not really an IQ test, honestly. Like, you can prepare for it. It's not, and it's timed. Like, you do have to prepare for it. If someone just rocked up and did it, if I just told you need to rush through the questions, then you would do a bit better than if you didn't know that. So I think that just proves it's not really an IQ test, unless you just like realize that you gotta rush through the questions. Yeah, so preparation definitely helps. It's a bit debatable whether it's like an IQ test. English, yeah, definitely work on English then, ARA. It's good you recognize your weakness and you're here and you're trying to work on it. So good stuff. Do you have any vids for physics and methods? I do, Stacey. I have some videos on methods personally, and I've also have some lives. So if you scroll down, you'll see Gordon, Jin, and me going through some physics and spec papers, and me and Yi Chen going through some methods papers. They're doing all the work. I'm just like there facilitating a little bit, and they talk a bit through their thinking and stuff. So that might help you. But make sure maybe you've sat the exam beforehand, or like, okay, you say to yourself, I'm not going to sit this exam later because you'll know the answers. Chun, hello. Yeah, a bit behind. What are you? About... I think, have you graduated, Chun? I don't know if you're joking. So you're either a year behind. Yeah, I think you're joking, right? So you are a year behind studying Women of Troy. But yeah, thanks for joining and supporting. Dandelion, no worries. Okay, are you... No, you've graduated, right, Chun? I think. I'm very confused. Are you asking ARA? Okay, cool. I can help you. Oh, nice. Yeah, sure. You can exchange your details. Do you have any bits for physics? Oh, you weren't joking. Okay, my bad. So you are behind in Women of Troy. Okay, I'll help you out then. Alright. I thought... Oh, but you stopped Latin. Yeah, I remember you were talking about Latin with me for a while. So I was thinking that you were in year 12 last year. I need to remember quotes and themes and ideas. Let's see. You can message me, Chun, as well. Like, you have my Instagram. I need to remember quotes and themes and ideas. Yeah, when's your sack for Women of Troy? I think focus on one thing at once. In terms of what I think writing more will leave that. That's very rarely a problem. Like, if you write less but it's good quality, it doesn't matter. So let's focus on the more important problems first. You need to remember quotes and themes and ideas and expressing eloquently. I think for that, homework essays will be the most helpful. So, or like body paragraphs. Just try and write body paragraphs and spend time trying to find the best quotes and then try and analyze them well. I think if you spend time finding it, then you will remember it better. Okay, if the sack is next Friday, let's see. Yeah, send me a message afterwards, Chum. We discuss this in more detail. But I think it depends what's worse. Like, I don't know how bad you are at remembering quotes or how bad you are at expressing stuff. But if you're like okay at expressing stuff but it's not perfect, that's fine. Then you should just try and work on writing paragraphs from memory to improve your quotes and knowledge. But if your body paragraphs, if you're like generally like you don't remember many quotes at all, then you want to work on that. But if your expression is like terrible, then you want to be working on your expression. Your quotes are okay, then you would divert your attention more to the expression part. Hopefully that helped. So essentially, whatever's worse, work on that, and either use body paragraphs from memory for the quotes, or use like just spending time writing, taking a bit of time to clear up your expression, starting with simple sentences and adding stuff like phrases here and there, but just making sure everything is coherent and flows well. Okay, yeah, good. So yeah, I think go through the themes, go through the possible body paragraphs, go through the possible moments that, this is for Chun, the moments that you might be talking about that you think are very likely to analyze, likely to come up, and then just have a look at that moment. Pick out some more quotes and try and slot it into your existing analysis. And definitely finish the play. Like, you have a little bit of time, right? You have what, 5 days? Is that what you mean by next Friday? So yeah, definitely have a look at some more quotes. Don't overload yourself with quotes though. That's not very useful, and some people do that before the sack. How do you improve in Chem? Your average is stuck around the 70s. Yeah, it depends what like you're getting wrong. Are you getting questions wrong because you just don't know? Then in that case, like, you should start your practice sacks a bit earlier. Learn from them. Do more textbook questions, I think. Chem, the practice questions in the textbook are actually quite good. And understand why you do things and be very fluent with things like finding moles, doing stoichiometry. It's a long process, each step, and you might do it once or twice and you're like, I think I kind of know it. But if you really want to do well, you should be very fluent with it and like know exactly what you're doing at each step. So first I'm dividing this by 2 because of this, and then I'm doing this because of that. Yep, ARA. Good help there. Yeah, so help each other out as well. Good stuff. Alright, I will probably call the live there. Thank you guys for your time. Enjoy your weeks, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks ARA for your help with as well. Cool. Enjoy your weeks and see you guys later.